I thank the ranking member, and I now recognize the gentleman from Iowa, Mr. King, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good afternoon, sir.
Mr. Perez, thank you. I appreciate you being here to testify. And just a couple of things I'd like to start out with some clarification. I know that we have perhaps a better perspective in the rearview mirror. So I'm looking back on that date in 2009. And I'm thinking of an exchange that took place between yourself and Mr. Gomert. And the question that he asked was, did you watch the video of the new Black Panthers? Do you recall that question?
I don't recall the question, but I know the answer to the question, and the answer is yes.
Okay, thank you. And I would just point out for the committee that Mr. Gomert, although he's not able to be here today, asked that question 5 times before he got that straight answer. And I appreciate the clarity that comes today, and I don't think we had it then. And I'd see if we could clarify something else again. And on that day, you testified that the maximum penalty was obtained against the, let me say, perpetrator, singular, of the voter intimidation of the new Black Panthers. Do you believe that today, that the maximum penalty was obtained?
The maximum penalty in that case was injunctive relief, and that is the maximum penalty under Section 11 of the Voting Rights Act. If Congress wants to expand the penalties, we would be happy to have that discussion. So that was the maximum penalty, and if you as I recall,
would I be naive if I were led to believe that injunctive relief was a clear and concise definition under the law, that everybody else here understands the scope of injunctive relief, or could you describe the full scope of injunctive relief that was available as a means to bring against the defendant?
The scope of injunctive relief depends on the scope of the violation, and once the national parties and the leader of the national party was dismissed from the case, then the scope of the relief had to, by force of law, be appropriately and narrowly tailored to fit the violation.
Could it have been more narrowly tailored than it actually was then?
I'd have to review that to figure out the narrow tailoring. What I would note is that, again, looking at the OPR report, the OPR looked at this precise question, Congressman, and concluded that the relief sought was indeed appropriate given the application of the facts and law in that particular case. So OPR looked
and so the definition then of injunctive relief might be narrow, it might be broad, but could you have brought are you testifying before this committee that the injunctive relief could not have been more broad? Could it not have gone beyond Philadelphia, for example, into other jurisdictions, perhaps nationwide? Could have not extended beyond the 2012 election? This injunction is just about ready to expire. After the next election, it's over. So isn't it possible that the injunctive relief could have been greater than that was achieved?
Again, as I understand the law, sir, an injunction must be narrowly tailored to the violation. And the key in this particular case was that once the national party and the leader of the national party were dismissed, then the injunctive relief had to be appropriately and narrowly tailored.
Let me submit that I believe that could have been a nationwide injunction, and that it could have gone on in perpetuity, and no one should be past the statute of, let me say, the injunction limitations by a single election being ahead of them. Well, what about the decision to drop the case against the other alleged defendants that were allegedly involved in that Philadelphia case?
Would the gentleman yield for clarification for a second?
In a moment, I'll yield when my time runs out, but it's very close right now. Thank you. But the decision to drop the cases against the other individuals you testified was made by political, but not by political, but by career employees, and I think the names were Loretta King and Mr. Rosenbaum. Does that still remain the case, or would you wish to clarify that before the committee?
That's the decision was made by Loretta King and Steve Rosenbaum, 2 people who are career attorneys in the division with a combined experience of roughly 60 years or so.
And they was not overruled or reviewed and with input from political appointees, Pirelli and Hirsch?
Well, again, as I've described before the commission, anytime you make a decision, I have a regular Thursday meeting with the Associate Attorney General and other people in the leadership chain. When you are making a decision, I'm about to do something in case A. We're about to
but the question was, it was not overruled by or influenced unduly by political appointees.
No, and again, the new the OPR report concluded, and they didn't say that there was scant evidence or insufficient evidence of political interference. They said there was no evidence of political interference.
Mr. Perez, would you get back to this committee in the response to the question, was it possible under the law to broaden this injunctive relief to jurisdictions beyond Philadelphia and extend it beyond the 2012 election? I think the specificity with that's going to tell us as whether we got the straightest of answers the last time in December of 2009. And I am frustrated that the department has so many allegations against it that it is focused on issues that have to do with loading this on the side of minorities when equal justice under the law is your charge, and you've testified to that here today. The narratives that come out and the evidence that there is replete across the country. And so I'm concerned that Lady Justice is truly blindfolded and that you address these issues without regard to skin color or ethnicity, national origin. And so at this point, I do thank you for your testimony. I hope you can identify for this committee sometime when you bring a case against someone in a very clear way. And I know you've discussed it, but I'd like to have some details about the case that you brought, that's part of the package that you brought, which is the race role, if you please. And now I know the gentleman from New York has asked if I would yield, and I'd be happy to do so.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify a matter. I am told that the injunction has not, in fact, expired and will not expire. The jurisdiction of the court to supervise enforcement of the injunction will expire, but the injunction does not expire.
Well, I thank the gentleman for his input, and yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you. And I now recognize